Hello and good morning, everybody. How are you doing today? Everyone is doing fine. It is a lovely morning here in North Carolina. It is raining. Fortunately, we may or may not have a good stream quality today based on how yeah, we may or may not have a great stream today depending on how well the weather holds up and how it impacts the actual internet connection. So we shall see. I'm not seeing too many drop frames right yet. Good. I'm running a bit of a delay to make sure that we don't have big issues. Tiny bit off this morning because I was out running around in the woods all day yesterday and a little tired from that, and then compounded by the fact that it's daylight savings time here in the United States. So spring, so we sprung forward, which lost an hour left. So yeah, it's a little rough. It's kind of like having a hangover without all the fun of drinking the night before. So we'll get there. Sorry, there's stuff in the way here. It's the tool holder that I up for this air build. So the stream today is going to be install the Prusa MMU2S, which I previously built actually prior to starting streaming. And we'll go over a little bit of the operation. So as you can see, all the electronics is back here at the top, so the top plate is forward, and have this front motor here that moves the selector cart left to right. Have this motor here that will actually drive pulleys, drive gear that are on the. Then this side over here is the pulley select. I'll open this up and I'll kind of show you what I mean by those things. Second. Spring loaded too much. And I realized I am still talking. No, I am not. See ya. Hope everybody's doing this weekend. Okay, so a couple of screws and it'll open up like a clamshell. And you'll see on this side is a row of drive gear. These are your standard Bondtech drive gear, and they've been lined up appropriately by running filament through. Sure, each one of these 5 are lined. On this side, you have a set of pulleys, but they're all offset. And that's what this motor does, is actually, based on the selection being made, rotate around to make sure that 623 bearing, the 608 bearing, lines up with given drive gear, so that when the drive gear starts, there's tension on it. it'll pull the filament. So in essence, you're basically using a standard, I'll say, style rep wrap, reality, one drive gear, 6-weight bearing. But this is only pushing the filament down to the actual tool head on your printer. So it's really just, it shouldn't matter that you don't use drive gears simply because you do have dual drive gear extruder. All this is doing is moving the filament extruder. Closes back up. This is a Pinda probe that's being used for filament detection. Call it Pinda. Close this back up. Simply tighten it down until the screws are flush with the top. That's all. That should be all the tension that you need to start with. Should be good. Now you'll notice here on the front, on the left side, we have 3 buttons. We have 3 buttons, and this will be left, right, and the middle will be select. We have indicator lights for the 5 lanes. It does load 1 through 5. On the side over here, you have a micro USB port. This is how we flash it. Then there is a detent for a reset button. I went ahead and I loaded the latest version of the firmware on the line just to make sure that we were there. I do have the 310 Prusa firmware. I have not gone up to 312 simply because when I attempted to go up to 311, this particular extruder, one is the bare EXA. So anytime that you load firmware and it requires you to calibrate your XYZ, X and Y will work fine, but Z will fail if you're running a bare EXA 6mm height, a bare EXA extruder and the normal Prusa extruder. Bare EXA is shorter, which gives you 6 travel. So what you have to do is load the bare firmware, run through your calibration, and you can load up the Prusa firmware. I have noticed that there has not been any changes in MMU firmware since the printer itself was 9. So we shouldn't have a problem and I shouldn't need to update. The other thing that gave me pause is when I did upload to 311, they have a new thermal model for the hot ends on the Prusa and the firmware, and it's not compatible with up a lot quicker. Which is standard hot end on the Prusas, so you'll get a lot of thermal errors. Supposedly fixed in 3.12.1, but I have not tested it yet. So for the stream, I didn't want to jump up. So that's kind of where we're at so far this morning, and what I do want to do screens roll. I highly apologize. Screen not really right. Messed around with it this morning. I haven't figured out how to. But what I need to do is go ahead and remove filament from the actual spool out of here. Our spool holder off and start working. Go into our menu to mode. Now this particular spool holder is a pretty nice spool holder. It's got a little bit of flex to it. Got a little bit of flex to it, but not much. But I will say that you've got to put this in on the end. If you don't, you will have problems. I did a filament change and I forgot to put this end blocker on, and I woke up in the morning and the spool had worked its way off just through standard printer movement. And it had fallen off and made contact with the wall and wedged itself in behind the printer. Believe it or not, the print's still finished, but yeah, I've got some nasty marks on the drywall. I have to now go and fix. Not bad. Okay, set this aside for now. We are going to go ahead and tell this to go down. It's going to start cooling off. We'll go ahead and we'll take the spool holder bracket off. It's just a couple of M5x10 nuts. M5x10 roll-in nuts, or M5x10 button and socket head screws, and some roll-in M5 nuts. Just comes right off. So that was just the actual 3 holes that were on there. Are no top down. Nice thing I like is it filament clip that filament down. Hey, Silverback Games, how are you doing? Glad you could join us today. Glad you could join us. So what we're doing right now is we're going to work on our getting our MMU2S setup going. So there's a couple of things left that I have to do on this. One is mount it, of course, and then get the wires run. And I also need to install the PTFE tubes. Now, there's various ways that people do that. It says to use 650 millimeter long tubes. That allows you to go from the back of the unit to the buffer system. And I'm not going to use that buffer system with this actually, simply because one, the mount that it comes with is designed for use on a standard frame, and this is actually a build. And two, there's just a lot of people have issues with the standard that standard setup. So we're going to actually go a different route, something different. Pop the M5 rolling nuts. this is a Prusa bear build. So basically what it does is it moves from the standard Prusa frame to the extrusion frame. And this particular one, I had bought this one secondhand, so I want to say this is a Bear 2.0 frame. And my other Bear down here, Black Bear, is the 2.1 frame. And the kind of the difference is this one uses some a lot more, some through bolts. That's why you might see some hole extrusion, and it doesn't have the T braces on the sides for the uprights. Yeah, it's just a standard extruded frame. Here, roll this. So yeah, standard set of 20, 40 extrusions. It's a really stout, sturdy frame. It really stiffens it up a lot. Then, as you can see, I've on a couple streams back, we went from the linear rods, linear rails. Yeah, the purple was nice. This is one. This is a printer I actually bought from secondhand to me, but it was one that somebody over on ModBot stream had and had a few issues with. So I went ahead and bought it off of her and reprinted all of the parts. And this is a purple ABS. So all of the frame parts here are pretty much ABS. There's a couple like the control back here that is PETG. But if I decide to go with high temp stuff, then I'll just yeah, and ModBot's a really cool dude. He's got a lot of good content out there, and he streams Wednesdays, except for this past Wednesday because him and his wife just had their first baby. And then he puts videos out on Saturdays. Yeah, really, really good vid. So now that we've got our standard, well, not standard, but our pull holder off, we're going to go ahead, and I'm kind of doing this a little bit out of order, but I'm going to go ahead and mount the unit because I want to mount the unit to figure out the lengths of the PTFE tube. So we'll notice that I've got this piece over here. This is a, well, there's a product called an RMU, which I'm trying to remember what it stands for. Basically, it's a buffer system, and this is a similar type unit. It's not the RMU. The RMU is proprietary. You can buy it. It's over in Europe. This is a different version. Oh, okay, cool. I didn't know that he had done an MMU. I don't think he's got a Prusa, so I don't think he did MMU. I think he probably did an ERCFA, Range Rabbit Carrot Feeder. But any of them suffer from the fact that you need some type of buffer system, some place for the filament to go when it's pulled back out and it does the color change. The Prusa standard looks like this. It's just a series of plates, open-sided, and it's got slots here where it's made to just slot right on the back of. So you've got these slots. So you would use the slots at the bottom, and it would lay right up against the printer. Had a MMU, or excuse me, a Mark II, which uses a threaded rods. That's what these two little clamps are at the top. And so this would literally sit right at the back of the printer. Okay. And then you would come in filaments from one side, bring them through, and out the other side would be tubes that would come up to the back of the. There's been a lot of people that have a lot of issues with this unit. Some people that say it works well, a lot of people have issues with it. I've decided not to use this from the get-go, and I'm going to use this other solution, which I think one, mounts nice, and two, with just the rotation of a knob here that you can't see, open up for loading. And what it has is these wheels are running on 608 bearings. And so what'll happen is the filament will come in from this side. There's two ways that you can print this. You can print it so that you have another set of PTFE mounting bosses here. And that's if your spool holder's on the right or at the top, bring your filament in, go around your big pulley wheels here, and come out the top. Or you can side load, come in through this front or left side, and you will bring it in and go around um, your wheel. So you'll take it all the way around one and then go through the top. And that way, as it does the retraction, it's going to feed the material down the length of the side here. So you've got plenty of room for your excess material to buffer here. Because remember, you're buffering the length from the front of your MMU to your tool head. So one, this moves the buffer system itself closer. And then two, it's a lot less stuff hanging out the back that can get caught up in the. Yeah. And there are so many different types of buffer systems out there. I've seen people that are using the carrot patch, so the Enraged Rabbit carrot patch system of spool rewinders or buffers, which is what Zombie used. So for this, I used to have the nuts in the back to hold the spool holder on. Now I need nuts at the top, and these are going to be our mount points for MMU. The MMU is going to sit just like this, so it's going to mount to the front at the vertical up against the extrusion, give it some stiffness, and it's going to sit at an angle. Okay, and it's like that for a reason, and part of that is how it lets any filament, we'll say junk, um, sit it or drop out of the unit and out of the way, so it doesn't get caught in carbon. What I need to do is just get this loosely mounted, and then we will work on actually getting it in the right place. It does need to be centered on the machine. And eyeball it. You can sit here and be precise and measure. I'm just going to see where I'm at. Let me see. So that's pretty darn close. The Silverback, how are you doing today? Got anything going on today, or I should say, are you in the United States? And if so, how are you doing with the change in time tonight? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yesterday I was. Yeah, you're up at 5 a.m. all year long. Yeah, the reason I didn't stream yesterday is I was supporting my hunting mentoring group, and so we were out in the field all day yesterday. We did a camera hunt, set up blinds, and um, put out a little bit of corn earlier in the week to help attract deer to the areas where we're blinds. It's in a say state park, county park, so there's no hunting at all that's on there. Call it a camera hunt. What it is we go out, we set up some blinds, and in North Carolina, yeah. So we set up blinds. We scouted last weekend and figured out where we were going to walk people through because we did scout walk through areas and show them, okay, here's a rub, here's what it would look like, here's actual deer tracks, here's scat, um, because there are deer there and they're not pressured. And so um, walked them around and showed them all that, and then had some dinner, and then we went back out to some blinds that we had set up, and um, we just kind of showed them how to kind of get in quietly, seated, how to get in quiet and stand, and had some movement behind us. Back, it was like, then it got a little louder, and the guy I was sitting with was looking to the left. I heard some noise off to the right and saw it out probably 15 or behind, out them out. That one never came out, but there were two that came out from the right. They came out into this power line cut through is, and they came out like right in front of our blind. I've got a 10-minute video of them just playing around right in front of our blind, and it was really good. Every single one of our students got to see deer, multiple had set up. That was awesome. I know that's one of the first things is always, I just want to see a deer. When you see a deer and you understand the relationship, size and distance and everything, that and it's so much more interesting. Oh yeah, yeah. I try and harvest a deer like once every other year, um, just because it's just me and my wife, and it provides enough meat for a while. Um, so yeah, okay. So we've got our wires around here, and what we've got is got power wires, and then we've got the actual wires, control board, run all the sensor stuff. So we need to get those mounted into our control unit. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and down plug it, and then figure out how to do this. turn this around a bit. And I'll need to get into the case here. So this mount, you'll see it's sitting at a bit of an angle. The mount that I'm using to mount the RMU unit to the bare frame, it's actually designed to go on the standard frame. So this kicks out a little bit at the bottom. I'm probably going to have to redesign something to mount it a little more vertically. I don't think it'll make much sense here. Yeah, I'll figure out one way or the other how to mount this better. I am contemplating, and I'll have to see how this one works out. I was contemplating just buying the actual unit from RMU, and it has mounts specifically designed for the files and lets you buy it. We'll see. I have what I'm. So there is a long M3 screw over here. That will let us open the door. And we're going to fix this floppy cable too. I don't have the nylon filament in this one at the moment, and I need to replace that. I need to figure out what I did with the nylon filament. I knew I had, but I finally found. So we're going to replace that while we're in here because we'll have to move the filament sensor. We do some work on the top of the extruder. So when we go in to do that, hey zombie, how's it going? Go ahead and fix the floppiness. Now, one of the things that it tells you to do, going to do, sorry, the lighting is really not trying to move, is these wires are going to come down the side here. They're going to feed in right from the top, which means we need a spot in this door to allow these to come down. So, exactly, zombie. Time change, and I am dead. We can either try and cut it in place, or we can pop the top bracket out, at least loosen it up, pull it up, which is what I'll do for now, and we're off at that point. Get in there. Just slide that bracket up and that door. What we have to do is just cut out a little piece of this door to give our wires an avenue to come in. So let's just use some wire cutters. Actually, it's going to make a note. It's going to cut it at a straight angle like that. Just wires themselves are not that big. Okay, so I just cut off a little bit of that should allow the wires to get in, but I am going to try and round over those edges just a bit so that I don't braid said wires as they go in. And zombie, you haven't done an actual MMU, correct? You did a ERCFA? Excuse me. Enraged rabbit carrot feeder and a cabbage patch. Oh, hey BC, thank you so much for the 5 gifted subs. That is awesome. Let's see who we got. Osita Craft, Small Beautiful Asian, Hey Mr. Rick, Eagle Brett, and Forever Night. That is awesome. Thank you so much for doing that and helping to expand my audience here some. All I'm doing is just trying to take off the hard edges here so that we don't wind up with a wire abrasion issue. In a rep winder. Okay. Yeah, I don't know why I thought you did a carrot patch. But yeah, you did the rep. Well, thank you so much, brother. Thank you so much. So yeah, we're just giving ourselves a little bit of room here to allow those wires to come in. Get our door back in place and get our hinge set up. Double check that we have a little bit of room going in there. And I'm just going to drop these wires in here just to make sure that everything can close as appropriate without things getting pinched. That should work. These wires shouldn't be moving at all, so that should be fine. Lock this. For our wires, the positive and negative go on the terminals to the left, and then our cables themselves. Let me do this. So I still need to do this part. This will be adding the actual PTFE to buffer system. We already have these nuts inserted. Once we mount this up, door off, add a little bit of an area so that there is a bit of a gap there that we can get the wires in. Wires are going to go straight down the side here. I'm going to have to take this off once again to get that piece of nylon filament in there to provide the strain relief. Also to be able to move, get a little more slack in. Yep. Still trying to wake up, still going with some coffee. Uh-oh, so you gotta get your homework done. You're gonna be on here, so don't get yourself caught and get scolded by well know me for being online. Let's see. This is probably gonna be easier for me to do. It's probably not gonna be as easy for you guys to see. These wires. I'm just gonna move this so that I can see what I'm doing and make sure I get these connections done. Whatever. once again, I'm just going to put up the two terminals all the way to the left, the positive and negative, and then I'm going to attach the power wires with the positive wire being all the way towards the front of the negative wire. They're just going to go over the existing connection. Get screwed. And if you've ever worked on Prusa, it gets real tight. This part, green, or if I laid it down. All scales to the rescue. No idea. Real man get frustrated. Prusa. Hey, Poondog, how are you doing? Yep, happy Sunday fun day. Happy Sunday fun day. So we are in the process of installing the wires for our MMU2S into the Prusa control case, which is always a joy to work in. So they're not going to test. Alrighty. That'll be first two wires. And then the next wire, which would be our sensor, come down in here, and it's going to get plugged in right above the other filament sensor. You just have to make sure that you get it going in the right direction when you plug it in. And that direction would be, write them down this way. And the power plugs go on the left side, and the wiring coming from your MMU goes in this top row, and it goes with the white wire faced to the left, IR filament sensor, and MMU cable, which goes in the top. Brown wire here should be going towards left. So we just need to make sure that we plug that in the right direction. It's going to go right above. These. Looks right. Solid. And that would come down, and we just loop it around and give it some that. Now, while we're in here, we need to give ourselves a little bit of room on this sensor wire. So that's where we're going to start unclipping. Only going to unclip, remove the top 3 of our zip ties here so that we can remove some of the strain on our wire loom. The bottom 2 are just fine because they're holding the cut-in heater and thermistor wires as it goes into the loop. So that's fine for now. Now we may need to unclip these 2 zip ties here and give us the ability to route said filament sensor wire a little bit differently. We will do that while we have the access. You have to be very careful when you do this that you don't cut the wire. I would also say before you do anything else, go ahead and get your zip tie back in there. You can be ready to. Now I do know that this top wire right here is my filament sensor wire. Verify that that is the right wire. I'm going to pull this one out of the way. I'm going to try and get my tie back down there without moving any of the other wires. Wondering if that'll give us enough that we need so I don't need to undo the next one. That through. So we'll leave it just like that for now. I am going to set this back up on its side or upright. And we'll just set it right. Because we are going to need to work on this. Because I need to get my proper screen relief 3mm filament in there. Somewhere a dedicated length annotation, but it's going to snip off some. It's this package. And once again, this is the 2.85/3mm Talman nylon filament. The Prusa actually sends you a certain amount of this when you build your printers. In this case, this is a second-hand build for me. I always like to have a little bit of this on hand. It's pretty expensive, but you can sample pack, or at least you used to be able to. So that will let you drive this down right in the. That will then allow you to bring us around the strain. Get to it. Now, filament sensor wires. Get ourselves a little length coming through here. Go ahead and unplug this wire. I see. Camera. That's the only way I got it to the other day to actually unplug, or not unplug, but actually to shut the stream down and come back into it. I do not know why that one is doing. Give me just a second here and let me see what's with it. hopefully bring it back and it doesn't look like it did. Okay, give me a second here. I'm gonna have to stop OBS and get back in. Hopefully it doesn't drop the stream, but if it does, I will be right back because I want to get this side camera. You won't see. Hey, Everything Plus Ultra, how are you doing? Yeah, this is a Mark 3S, and we're installing a Prusa MMU. Yeah, give me just a second. I've got to drop out and come back into OBS. It's the only way I've been able to get back active again. So give me just a second. Drop the stream. So we'll just stay streaming over here, and you're just not going to see some of the stuff that I'm working on, unfortunately. We'll try and get the camera. So what I've got here is so the MMU is mounted on the top. We've got it centered based on dimensions. We have brought down and we have the wires for the MMU down into the control board plugged in now. What we're working on is we have to relocate some things on our tool head itself. So what we'll do is we'll take the cover off. Hey, Westery One, how are you doing? Oh, you got a photo shoot? Awesome. Awesome. So I had the parts printed in the purple ABS, and then when I was tightening on the fitting, I broke it. So I had some other things going on the ABS machine, so I just printed these in black PETG for now, and I can swap these out off stream. But in essence, what we're going to do here is we're going to remove our sensor. Let's see. Screws. So I'm going to use 5. We're going to remove our filament sensor out of the top of the extruder. And this is just a standard Prusa IR sensor. Right? And there's a lever that trips right between these two tangs on the one side. So what we're going to do is basically do the same thing. It's still going to have a lever in here, and I'm just going to keep the same ball fitting in here. If I was using the normal Prusa Mark III, I would take the ball out and I would have a plug that I would set down in the middle. But because this is a bare exit, it's a little bit different setup. But we have a new top cover. going to go on, and we're going to have the chimney stack. This is going to fit right over the top of that. And what's going to happen, tight fit, is the same screw hole is going to be used. I just might need to get a longer screw, and it's going to come down through the top here. That's going to latch the top plate on. Then the filament sensor, so the wires get run through this chimney, right? We're going to run the wires through the chimney here. That pulled out the top. There we go. Okay. Our filament sensor is going to get plugged back in. And our wires are going to be looped around just like that. Our filament sensor is going to go back in. Okay. Have this little round. So we'll go ahead and get that back on. Just threading this into plastic, so I want to damage that board, but you want to make sure that it is fully seated down in there. Because any play in this board could give you. I just sat there. I forgot to cover on that. Oh, now I get to unscrew that again. Oh, wow. So you did the giant T-Rex skull, huh? This cover plate goes right over that in place. Start on the top first. This is going to be called your chimney stack. And what's going to happen on the normal Prusa extruder, got a ball bearing and a lever. So as you put filament in, it actually moves a steel ball. That steel ball will push this lever over. There's a little flag on that lever that will trip the sensor. So see that little lever at the bottom? That's the little flag that will trip the sensor whenever filament goes in. So what we're going to do is we're just going to put this back and it'll keep that ball held in there. And it's still going to do the job that it was doing. It's just no longer going to trip the sensor because we're going to relocate the sensor up to the top. And there's this little groove right here in the print that you can see there. And that fingers, there we go, this groove right here. And what's going to happen is we get a different door assembly that has a tall flag on it. That flag's going to sit right in that groove so that when filament is not present, it sits flat. Filament goes in, it's going to push that door open slightly, which will then trigger the sensor and we'll know that there's filament inserted. Wire routing channels for wires here. So you don't clamp down on them. Screw this on. Right back on where it was. Should be able to use the same screw. You don't keep knocking things off and over and dropping things. Okay. I apologize for being so clumsy today. I'm just going to chalk it up to our lovely time change and the fact that I was out running the woods yesterday. I did that pretty good. Literally, no idea where that screw went. Oh well. Pretty sure that was a by 10. I'm trying to do this systematically without taking 3/4 of the extruder apart. And I have a feeling that's going to have to go to at least a 12 now. Yeah, Chewy, I just feel like such a klutz today for whatever reason. And like I said, I will run this with the black for the time being and switch it over to purple down the road. Need to print with some of the purple I have, which may not be this exact shade, but what is going on here? That doesn't feel like it's biting all that much either, so I'll have to go up to a 16, not a 14. Yeah, you guys know me. I can never really mod and follow the directions because I've got other mods that cause me other issues. Oh yeah, man, definitely get something to eat if you need to, Chewy. Definitely go get something to eat. Yeah, I'm feeling that was way. Do I have? I think I have three and 3x14. Question is, I'm not sure where I pulled them out of, so hopefully I don't need them for something else. Yeah, so basically all we've done is we've moved the filament sensor from right here in the tool head to up here. Um, there is a there is a mod where you wouldn't have to move it. The problem is it involves this piece that has to kind of come up, over, and around, and every time you touch the door, it messes that up and just causes all kinds of issues. So now what I'm going to do is release the tensioning spring on the extruder so that my door can swing open, because I need to replace this door. So then it's another M3 screw on the back, and this acts as a hinge for the door. It goes through the back of the extruder, through the door, and into the motor. I have to remove this, get the door out. Hopefully don't drop the washer between the door and the body. I'm going to drop the washer. Wow, that was awesome. And now would be a good time to clean out any gunk that's in here from stuff that you have ground down some filament over the printing hours that you've got on your printer. Check things, give it a good once over while you're in there. So what we're going to do is pull the idler out of this piece. Probably clean off the threads a bit while I'm at it. And we're going to put the idler on the other piece. So just push the
center pin out or your idler out, but be careful because you do have the needle bearings on the inside. Looking at this, it's a little dirty, so do a tad bit of maintenance while we're in here. Down some. Try and drop my check on it. Act. Best way I do that is I stick my bearings back in that part. Mobilux in there. Sorry, I'm going to this off. No, we are on. Get the bearings back in there. I'm going to put my finger at one end, squirt a little bit of Flux EP2 in there. Just going to take my pin, run it back in there, and you're going to get some pressure. See some of that grease pop out the top and bottom, and if it doesn't, go ahead and pull it back out. Add a bit more grease in there. By holding the end, it's got to press that grease into the bearings or it presses it out. So all you're trying to do is get it to grease those bearings all the way through. Kind of wipe off the excess that's out the end. I'll make sure that you don't have any grease on the filament path itself. Go ahead and put it in this new piece. Stick side. Get that in there. And in from the side. Go. Pushed all the way in. Rotates nicely. And then you can grease the big gear side over here. You can grease this side. And that will help as it meshes with the drive gear. Once again, you want to keep from getting any on the actual filament path. Just give like a dab there. Spot. just a little. I'm just going to put my finger lightly against that edge. I rotate the bearing just to kind of spread around on the T-sum. Once again, that's just going to help to tighten down the gears as they mesh. Sky Harbor International Airport, regional airport, whatever they call it today, is kind of a fuck. Okay, so we've got that. So what we need to do is there's an M3 washer that needs to go between this plate and that bolt. So we're just going to set this in place. And then we're going to have to try and work this washer into place without dropping it, making a mess and all that stuff. What I'm going to try and do is get it close, get that piece in there, use my tweezers to hold this. I start to push the screw back in. Maybe. Finger small. Close enough. In the it's going to be better. And the downside is when you swap that door out, you used to be able to take that door and just rotate it up and out of the way so you can clean the gears. Well, with the new door, because it's got that flag, you won't be able to do that. So you're actually going to have to pull the door completely when you go in to do any cleaning and maintenance on your system here. That is a fact of life. On there again, I need M3 not out of this. Hey, thanks a lot for coming out, Poondog. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us today. I enjoy your company as always, and have a good Sunday. There. Just trying to get these square nuts in sometimes. They want to go in, sometimes they don't. That in. They're provided. We're back in. Back up. But now what we have is, hey Royal Nomi, how are you doing today? Coming in and joining us. So we've almost got the physical install of our MMU system done. Those two things, that's that door, this side. This is the one that's providing the tension on the filament itself. Okay. Straighten up. There. Okay, so recap where we're at so far is we've got our MMU physically installed top to bottom. We've got the filament sensor moved. We need to complete our wiring and clean that up and close our controller box up. And once we're done with that, we should be ready to move on to the software side of things. Yep, we saw him lurking. He hasn't been actively talking to anybody. So all we're going to do is we're going to take our wires for our filament sensor and we're just going to run them back down through a cable channel best we can. Run them back up with our standard wiring loop. That's where we'll bring it around. And so we're going to go ahead and add in or jam in our little piece of nylon filament, this millimeter kind. So it's going to give us a nice, good solid support material for our wires to help keep them from dropping down onto our print. That into the back. Become part of our room. So Roy will know me. I don't want to talk to BC because I don't want to get him in trouble. The SVO6 Plus. Did you guys get a ship date for when that's going to come in? Or not? See, brother, you're supposed to be doing homework. Don't get yourself in trouble. It said the supposed to ship the 8th of March or the 8th of April. First couple in here, I'm going to throw this back in here. It is in. The split limb is nice, but it's also a pain. So I will say it's definitely not as bad as the, that black stuff. Tie wrap, because every time I used to use that wrap, you had to take it all the way on or all the way off, and it was felt like you were doing it for. The expanding sleeve is great for initial application. Anything beyond that, that sucks too. left off. Here, close enough to figure out where I need to snip that off. Oh, that was good. Doing a whole split loom and didn't get my filament. That out of the way. Yep. Yeah, the split black tube for cars works pretty good as well. I mean, this stuff, don't get me wrong, this stuff is probably one of the better solutions. It's just, I'm in a whiny mood today, I guess. Did I get the garden area done? So the area where we were going to put the um, bushes is, I believe, prepped. We still need to actually get the bushes in the ground. But the area is prepped. I believe the holes were dug. Then it rained all day yesterday. And I was out in the field all day yesterday, so I didn't get anything done there. Are tracking good to get that done and in there. Yes, Mrs. Dragon is staying on me about working on that and getting stuff done. I will not be on here all day because both work on that and probably get some food and we normally go and do a quasi date day after streams. Tighten this up, make sure that none of the wires are getting pinched as I do so. And then I will make sure when I close the door, I don't pinch the wires for the MMU unit itself. Okay. That MMU is not pinched. It's in from different nut. And okay, so our door's on, our wires are not pinched. I am going to try and pull these out of the way some. Not gonna be perfect, but just try and keep them to the side a little bit out of the way. Okay. And then the next thing that we need to do is get our tubing, and they suggest a 4 millimeter outer diameter, 2 millimeter inner diameter. For this, and this was the tubing that was provided. It is definitely not Capricorn, but should be good. Test it real fast. And so the reason they're asking for a 2 millimeter is you want it to be a little bit forgiving for the the heads of the filament as they come out. Of course, you'll have the English language apparently is not my forte today. As it comes out of the hot end, you will have some level of tip, an expanded tip on it. And so you want to have, if your filament's too tight, it will cause issues. And what I'm doing right now is I'm just trying to gauge about what kind of loop I would need. So I know about where to cut this at. Like I said, it originally said 650 millimeters, but that's for a having a unit sitting back here on the back side for your filament buffer. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and cut all these relatively the same. They don't have to be the same. I just want them to be relatively close. In fact, what am I looking at here? Once again, I'm using my standard little tool to make sure I get a straight cut on the end of these. Yeah, I'm not sure what this stuff is, Chewy. It's definitely not cap tube though. Once again, I'm just looking to get roughly the same size on these. And a couple of millimeters of each other is fine. And if I have any issues whatsoever with this stuff, I do have a plethora of 3mm inside diameter tubing that I can switch over to. So, and basically it's number one goes over here and will slip into the number one slot. Really doesn't go in that much. Not like a millimeter, or I'm probably fight these fine. It's going to come. was kind of said that. What you're really trying to do is make sure that you don't get a weird kink or that in tubes with them, because you want it to be gentle curving as possible, and just yeah, you're trying to reduce the overall friction as the filaments run through the tube. All right. Shoved it there. And I did print some of these clips out. These will help to keep them in order and hopefully allow me a little bit easier time as I installed in the back here. You just need to get these lined up in the back plate. Clamp these into place. So that's back plate. Okay. So what do we do here? I'm gonna cheat a bit. See if I can't get gravity to help me out a bit. So is undo the MMU and hang it off the front. Should hopefully allow me to have a easier time finding these. Like I said, there's just a real small amount of space to get in. That's why it's a pain. Press fit into about 2 millimeters depth. it's a pretty tight friction fit. Is what we want. Want to give it, really we're trying to get a semi-constrained path so that it's semi-constrained in the fact that we don't want them to be able to flip around and go just wherever it wants. Otherwise, it will go. M3 by 18s down from the, and there'll be 4 of them. Got 5 tubes going in between each of the tubes. And then you do something like that and screw it out. Trying to do it started, and then I'll clamp them all down in succession, but I need to make sure that the tubes themselves stay along channels. Kind of hard to explain, especially since I show you with. So I apologize for that. And really, this build isn't that hard. I mean, it looks a little daunting, but it really wasn't that hard to build the MMU. But I know a lot of people, the issues that they have are more related to operations than the build of it. But it's like any other multi-material, you a lot of tuning and tweaking to get things working right. Zombie can probably attest to that on his Earth file. That not the figured out. Uh, fell out again. At least 2 nuts down there that I'm going to have to search for. Yeah, the tweaking and the tuning can be fun. I am sort of looking forward to it because it'll be a good troubleshooting project to have. I haven't had one of those in a while. But yeah. Yeah, so once again, the MMU unit, it's not that hard of a build. It really isn't that hard of an install. I think trying to do anything on stream kind of adds to the overall complexity of the install. Those are in there well enough for now. If we have to pick down or screw on or screw off the tension. This back down into its right mounting location. MMU is now installed and wired. Things out. All kinds of. Tubes installed now. To up here or there. Nice. Again, the nice thing is up, do our load, put it back, lock it up, and we're good. All of our filament side, have it set up as 1 through 5. Okay. I just cut a few lengths of tube to the bottom side there. Now I'm not going to go with major. I'm just going to do this basically on the top here. going to be our initial guide tubes to get the filament in to the units of the RMU and the MMU. Yeah, a little swing out drum's pretty nice. And like I said, this particular unit, it allows you to print different, I'll say, top hats, which they refer to this piece as a top hat. This is the mid, and then this is the bottom. You can set it up so that you have inbounds back here. And so in that format, your filaments are either coming down from the top or coming over from the right. Or you can have them coming in from the side on the left side of the machine. So they come in this way, go in and around and into the back. Hopefully we shouldn't have too many issues with this type of curvature here. We should be good with the amount of curve that we have here. So I'm just going to set these tube holders again. Probably could have made these a little bit longer. Like I said, if I have any issues whatsoever, I will just cut new tubes. It's no big deal. Got plenty of tubing material. So let me get off my spool. I'll actually wind up using some of these probably. Okay, so I found my screw. Actually, looks 8, 9, 10. Okay, so we got our parts in place. And clean this stuff up real fast. Exactly. And so what I'm looking at doing is I may actually run these in here now. So my thought process is this machine normally sits right here. I can put a rep rack down here with feeds coming out the top, and that way I can run straight up into my MMU, my RMU unit, and into the printer. And so that'll be the plan. Now I'm going to turn this around this way. If I bring it to the front, that gives me the room that I need to have my spool holders kind of coming off this way. Probably not going to do all 5 at this time. I'm just going to throw a couple up here. And these are the standard MMU spool holders, injection molded bases that you just put your roller bearings in on. And so the setup would be, okay, give me a second to do this. I think we're done building. Get this stuff out of the way. Okay. So the way it normally has you do this is 3 in the front, 2 in the back. Right, so it wants you to kind of set it up sort of in this arrangement. Okay. And move the camera around just slightly. Work with me. So it's kind of like this arrangement. So they're offset, so you'll feed in between them. So you'll have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for your colors. I'll probably need to go and put a label up here. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is how I have them set up. And grab a couple of colors. Hello. Then blue. This is all Polymaker Polylight PLA. So I have like blue, we'll have red on there, so we'll be able to draw the spool off. Blue. You know, so you'd have your spools set up and you'd run them in like that. So what we would do next, our troubleshooting, back over our instructions, install. Assembly done. I think where we're at is set up. Yeah, I did the stabby. I did the stab. And Western One wasn't even here to see it. Okay, so we have our filaments. Like I said, I'm not going to run all of them. I'm probably just going to run a couple just to test some things out here. Our instruction, bring up first wheel. Shows us doing some good pre-flight checks. We did not take apart the main extruder, so we should not have any issues whatsoever with this. Good. First, turned off, not in. Do not get onto. So yeah, there's two types of MMU firmware. Type that goes on the printer, and then there's a part that goes on the MMU. As I said before, I have already gone ahead and done the firmware on the MMU. I did not go through and install additional firmware on the printer because my assumption was that I had the right version on there already for what I needed to do. Back some strain there. Um, trying to check and see what Silverback and Chewy were talking about. Yeah, see, that one's moving. What was it you guys are talking about, Chewy and Silverback? Yeah, so I'm currently running 310.0 on this particular board, and MMU is 106. If I can set this up right, I'm able to show you guys the actual firmware as we go into check, go into the settings, check your. Sorry, the support. So my firmware is 310.1.147. So, and then the MMU is connected, so it is picking up the MMU, and it's at 106.372. Firmware should be good. You have software configurations set up for MMU. We're not going to flash anything at this point in time. Did that. Now what we do need to do is add the MMU printer program. Is we're going to check the IR sensor calibration. So I haven't put in the PTFE tube to the front just yet. And what we're going to do, move the camera some, might be able to see a little what I'm doing. Back here. So I don't have the tube in between the MMU and the tool head, because what we need to do is check the position of this top hat, right? Because we can move that top hat in and out, or we can adjust the door here. And I'll show you how we can do that on this surround. So normally this chimney stack, there's a screw at the back that's in a slot, and there's a screw at the front. You'd be able to move the whole chimney stack left and right. On the bare one, there's only one screw in the back, holds it down. And what we'll do to the test is if the lever in the door triggers, then great. If not, there is a spot to run an M2 screw into it, and we will use that screw to set the adjustment so that we know that our filament sensor is tripping correctly. So it tells us to release the PTFE tube and loosen up those two screws. I don't have those two screws. We're going to take filament, stick it in, and it should go down, and it'll either trip or won't trip. It actually says to use an Allen key. I am choosing not to use an Allen. Just use filament itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the port. sensor. And it says right now that I have a PINDA, and a filament sensor. It says that all of them are reading zeros. I pull this out, still read zero. Nothing's tripping. So what I'm going to need to do is put a 2.5 millimeter screw in there. I guess a 2 or a 2.5. Real fast. Just go with the two by 6 button head here. Back around so I can see what I'm doing real fast. So on that filament sensor, there is a little hole that's designed to thread a M2 screw in. This drop. And it's a black screw. Black. So that's always. So what's going to happen is we're going to use this screw as the flag to trip the sensor. As filament goes in, it's going to open that door ever so slightly. And this sensor is going to and then that sensor will move, or not the sensor, but the screw itself will be moved over, and that will trip the sensor because it will go between the sensor blades, trip the sensor. Start. Aye, aye, aye. Well, Phillips head screwdriver. self-tapping 2x2. What we're doing is it should be reading 0 because the filament's not in there. When I put filament in, I know I'm in because I get down into the actual gears. I'm looking for that sensor to change. And since that sensor hasn't changed yet, I know it hasn't tripped. Then I'm just going to screw this in a little bit more. I see my sensor trip. Sensors. This is the part that becomes the fiddly thing, is getting like the sensors to trip, getting them to trip reliably when you take the filament in and out. The same way, the wires are on it the same way. Flag here. I wonder. Just a tap. Still getting sense on that sensor. Okay. Let me see if I'm getting sense up here on the fender. Fender did trigger. Getting repeatable triggers on the fender. Put it in, triggers. When I pull it out, it's back to 0. So the fender itself is triggering. It's not getting anything from my filaments. But sensor is on. Using dark parts. I shouldn't have an issue there. See if we can find out why our filament's tripping. Flag is definitely in there. Could have. Sensor was working just fine beforehand. It's still good. Pretty well. Cavity, but I am visually seeing a little bit of movement. Just getting nothing on the filament sensor read as it is. Filament should be 0. Instead of using Allen key, but I'm using a piece of filament itself. So when the filament's in but not pushed through the gears, it should be 0. Push it through the gears, it should move forward enough that triggers the IR sensor. Not getting a trigger on the sensor. So I think it has a 20 tip screw versus a 2 screw. Oh, screw. Screw. And still some 0. Sensor tripping. Don't know if I borked the sensor. So I can double check the wiring real fast. Yes, this is the magical MMU. And we are just trying to troubleshoot to figure out why not getting reading on the sensor. Shoved that screw in there, it did read, so it's an alignment issue between the sensor and screw. Take like the screwdriver between the two sensing feet. Two sensing feet does change. I am seeing movement. All right, we are getting a good sense. So this back on. I had that other screw all the way in, the self tapper. The only thing I can think of is it was a self tapper trigger. But we are triggering now. Pull the filament out of the gears, back to a 0. Trigger, in, gears, trigger, out, not trigger. Okay. You want to test this repeatedly because what you're looking for is the repeatability. Everything is triggering. So I did it at the tool head and I'm getting the right trigger. Then I'm going to do it up here at the fender. As soon as I drive in with the filament, the fender sensor triggers. So that's triggering. Not so concerned about the fender triggering because I know it's going to trigger. I didn't touch that. So right now things are triggering as they should be. Got the filament loaded, or I'm sorry, not the filament loaded. We've got the firmware loaded and installed. Am I becoming the printer whisperer? I do not know, John D. Strand. How are you doing today? Good morning, good morning. Glad that you were able to join us today. This is the magical MMU. I am not going to clipperize this. All of my Prusas are running Prusa firmware and will remain running Prusa for specific reasons. Now everything else that I have is clippered, but the Prusas are running Prusa firmware. I do have another MMU that I am on a closed beta for right now. So more to follow on that as I can talk about things. But yeah, there is another MMU being worked, and who knows, there may be an ARCFA. Okay, so our filament sensors are tripping correctly. Tool head filament sensor, as well as the fenda, super fenda, whatever they want to call it, up here on the MMU. It's there to load filaments setup. Wow, there already. Slide this as far forward as I can. Simply for the fact that get to this stuff. Go ahead and get a sharp tip on these. And once again, to load this particular designed buffer, we're going to go through the UTF-E on the left side here. Go ahead and open our buffer up. That filament is going to come out, and we're going to pull that filament through. And we want to loop it around our pulleys. If we were coming in from the top, we would just go in through the top and loop it around down. But we're going through this way, so we just have to loop it around the pulley. And that way, when the filament is retracted, it will then go around that, or go straight down into the buffer, and we'll be good. So I'm just going to go ahead and start pulling this filament through and getting it kind of to the MMU itself. If I had clear tubes or white tubes, this would be easier to tell where the filament was at. And all I'm going to do is just push this through until I feel it kind of hit the end, and then I'm going to pull it back just a shade. All right. So I just have the one. I'm just going to start with trying to do the one for right now. Of course, it says prepare at least two, so we'll go ahead and we'll do the two. We'll give it two. Why not? Just going to scoot these over to give them a little less tension. Out. We're going to push it through, get it to come out the other end. We'll grab it, make sure it's going around the right pulley. Then we'll clean up that. As with any MMU, the tips that you get on your filament are going to be crucial to your success. So is getting it into through your close. I'm just going to pull it back some, get it rested in place there. We're not going to use their buffer, we're using a different one. Then we're going to come up here and we're going to go into our menu, go to load filament. We now have the ability to load all or load a specific channel. And we're just going to say load one because I didn't load filament in all of them. I'm going to say load one. It's going to go through its selector. It's going to go and home itself, so make sure it knows where it's at. Come back to one. It's going to start blinking. And I'm just going to put a little bit of pressure on the filament until it takes. Does not feel like it. I may have a tensioning issue. Nope, there we go. We got it. It was just tight right at the end. Doesn't need your attention. It was resuming. For giggles, I'm going to go back and say, okay, load filament one again. Pulls it in, reads it at the pin to probe, and then pulls it out. Puts it back into the ready position. Right? Then I'm going to say load two. It'll move over and it'll start running the drive gears to try and pull in filament from two. So I'm just going to push through on the filament until it grabs and it pulls up, it sees it, and then it pulls it back. And when I say pulls it back, it's basically pulling it from the Findus sensor back to the ready position. So I now have two colors that are loaded. Apparently a red and a blue, and that red's probably going to be heinous here because it's lightweight. Then the next step is just doing the z-axis calibration, which we shouldn't need to do since we've already we didn't change our z probe. So the next thing to do would be to try and load up one of their G-code profile. And I've got slicer already here. Find my have this up here. Let's see if we can't find a file that we can work with. Good. And I guess no. Should have looked up test file. Two, we will say both. Objects. Okay, so there is our sheep closer to the front because we should have a purge tab. Kind of probably see or at least load up a different color. Because one, I worry about the red actually being able to roll for the print without having issues. Because it's a very, very light roll. The end of a roll, not much left to it. Swap that out and I'll put in a black and we'll just have a blue and black two color sheep. Filament spool is really tightly wound. It's kind of a pain to get these things going. Right there, we'll go ahead and do again. Okay. So we have our colors loaded up. We've got a slice started for sheep. We're going to say our color 1 I'm colorblind, so blue, purple, so same to me. So that may be color 1, lane 2, black. See, this is what our sheep should look like when we're done. With a black sheep. Got our filament selected. Settings. Got a quality. Power there. Side just does. Free. Gonna go settings. Sheep. I need some. Gyro. I'm just gonna let it fly with what it has. I know Windows sucks. That is why. Work that G code somewhere. Desktop for the. And that. Didn't do it the way that they will do. Oh, you haven't figured out what I'm doing? Sorry, I guess I've been sitting here slowly talking to myself. My apologies. Reality has 6 on sale. Yep. Sorry, John. I was, yeah. So what I was trying to do is get a file sliced for this. What we've got is we've got blue and black loaded up in our MMU. I'm going to try and run them just on the cardboard spools, but if I need to, I do have some printed rings that I can slap on them if they're not pulling easily or reliably. And like I said, I just got it started with basic settings, standard Prusa 2.0 quality, slice the file. And what I'm going to do is upload the file that I just saved. Say that desktop, color cheap. All right. Cheap. And we're going to hit print. It's going to complain because it's not on the latest firmware release. Which, as I mentioned before, that's expected because I do not want to go to the latest firmware release. Simply because the latest firmware release may or may not have solved the issue with the raise the camera a little bit. May or may not have solved the issue with the thermal uh, thermal model for the hot end because they provided a little bit better thermal model that will trip for thermal runaway issues. But of course, it's based on the E3D V6 hot end, which comes standard in the Prusa printers. So this is running a Revo hot end, which could have issues. Well, yeah, so you can find them for $1 on AliExpress. What's the shipping? Because there's quite a few times where I found stuff that's really cheap on AliExpress, and then you realize, oh, but it's $15 shipping, and it's going to take 3-4 weeks to get here. Free shipping, dollar, slow boat, get there. And is that coming with like everything, including a thermistor and heater, or just the actual body? I think I got like 3 or 4 V6s sitting around the shop here. Okay, so it's heating up. Everything just got heated up, so it's gonna go do its standard start the bed mesh. And I'm a masochist, so I run 7x7 on. No problem encountered. Z leveling enforced. Okay. That's probably not going to throw me a different issue because it's got a Z is too long on the running. think I messed with the computer, but who knows? All this. Yeah, an estimated delivery May 11th. So I mean, AliExpress is good for grabbing stuff for bench stock. But if you run out and you need it anytime soon, then you're better off to try and grab it on Amazon. But you have to be careful because a lot more people are selling stuff on Amazon that they're still sourcing from overseas. So they still leave like some long, stupid lead time. Okay, BC. Oh, that's going to be interesting. We're going to have an issue real fast here. It says remove old filament, press the knob to start loading new filament. That's a good thing because if Luke doesn't put a loading tube on this, we're going to have all kinds of issues. So this in this. Once again, what I'm getting ready to put on here right now is a 3mm inside diameter tube. You need to make sure that you've got a decent amount of space for this so that nothing gets kinked up. By space, I'm talking about length of PTFE tube. Okay. MMU needs user attention. User attention, but it's trying to solve itself. And it is trying to load the black. Loading it in. A little bit at a time, a little bit at a time. It's almost there. Going to trip the sensor. They'll know that it's down there. And it tells MMU needs it. And it's going to try and resume. I mean, I'm glad that it likes to keep trying to resume on its own. I'm not sure what we got, but it's not feeding filament through. And so we're going to have our first issue. Alright, we'll have to cancel this print. Actually, it just pulled the black out. Try and redo it. Yeah, so one of the things that I haven't done yet is haven't tested any of the tensions on the drive pulleys and stuff. So it could just be that it doesn't have enough tension and it's not getting stuff moved fast enough for its liking. Choose your tension. I get to go into the MMU troubleshooting guide. Sorry, I'm trying to look at the troubleshooting guide right now so I can see exactly what I need to work on. All right, have a good time, BC. Yeah, there's a lot of the issue with Amazon is it's moving away from a lot of Amazon and going towards um, a lot of resellers, and that's the issue. Is it's the resellers that are doing stuff. Okay, so I have a rapid flashing light, and what that's telling me is it failed during a unload. So it's telling me to check this front connector and see if we still have filament, which we do. Still filament there. what will be used. Solve the problem. So the issue I'm seeing here right now is that selector is set to the wrong lane. What I have to do is this is the fun of MMU. Work right. Work right. Um, thinks it's on element 1. It says it shows it's on track 1, track 2, and that is be an issue, I think. reset. Sorry, right back up on the front. See what happens. I know I've got a little bit of a tip still in there. It does do a reset at the top. It's gonna, I have an issue up there. The only other thing I can do is actually open it up, pull the filament back. That's probably what I should have done. Zero. That way I'm to the back here. I need to pull this out with randoms. Can't move it in, can't move it out. This bit has The only other thing I can do is move that panel in the back and the PTFE hose out, which is yeah. So I'm pretty sure the issue is the selector right here is in the wrong spot. So we are going to need to solve that issue. And with that, guys, I'm just going to go ahead and call the stream here for tonight. Okay. I do need to go and do some things with my spouse since I was out all day yesterday. And I will continue to work on troubleshooting this. And Tuesday night, when we come back and we chat, I will hopefully have whatever the issue is figured out so that we can then get a good print going. Okay. I'm sorry about this, but yeah, definitely need to work on this. This is new territory for me. We will get it going. I know that I say the easy part is building the MMU. The hard part is actually getting it to function and then function reliably. So thank you all for coming out and hanging out with me as I tried to beat my head through this one today. And like I said, I'll work on it some offline, and we'll get it going. No, I will. That let's see if there's anybody to rate out to. Yep, more content. There's always more content. Say in the cybersecurity world, target rich environment, and I will always have a jobs. Always going to be Free Heathen, Chris Perillo, Ian Douglas, Ian. Believe he is doing his resume reviews today. Yep, win-win, Chewy. Yeah, I think he's Ian Douglas is doing some resume reviews. Chris Perillo, of course, has things running on the background, but I don't see him. Free Heathen is always doing his thing. Yep, we're going to rate out John Strand. I'm still having some issues. I'm going to have to work in this, and I'm going to have to take some things apart to pull the filament out that's still stuck in this tube. The issue I'm having is that the selector, the pulley selector right here, is selecting or rotating the 608 bearings to the wrong position, so it's not able to grip the filament to move it in or out. So I just need to work on that and get that solved. I'm gonna have to take the tubes out in order to get the filament out because it is in there. Like I'm pulling pretty hard and it's not moving. So it is pretty in there, and I'm wondering if I just tightened too much down on these back tubes. I may have think the tube. I'll have to double check that. Yeah, so we're gonna raid out. We'll raid over into Free Heathen. Thanks for coming out, and like I said, I will catch you guys on Tuesday night. Hopefully between now and then, I can get this solved and we can at least see this thing printing something. Check the dip switch. Here's a dip switch. This is actually, I believe this is actually running the actual Prusa board. But yeah, I'll double check. But yeah, let's go ahead and rate out to Ian Douglas. Douglas. Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Like I said, I will work on this offline. Tuesday we'll come back and hopefully I'll have this somewhat squared away. We can at least start seeing plastic come out the house. I'll figure out why this other dropping, freezing. Right. Thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks for coming out and joining me this evening. Let's rate over to Ian Douglas. And, you know, like we always say, go with us on the stream. Give them a couple of chances to see if you like them. But we're out. Thanks all. Bye.